If I could go back and tell my younger self just one thing, it wouldn't be about money, health, or even love. It would be about the quiet power of silence and why, in old age, you must finally put yourself first. Strange, isn't it? We spend our whole lives talking, giving, fixing, until one day we realize that peace doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less and listening more. Now, I'm not saying we should disappear from life or give up on people. Not at all. What I've come to understand is that at a certain age, especially past 60, your energy becomes sacred. Every word you speak, every favor you give, every emotional reaction, you're spending something you can't get back. Time, peace, health. And if you've spent most of your life tending to others, raising children, keeping relationships alive, helping friends, being the peacemaker, you know exactly how draining that can be. We were taught to care, to be kind, to serve. And while those are beautiful traits, somewhere along the way, many of us forgot how to care for ourselves with the same devotion. You become so used to putting yourself last that the idea of focusing inward feels selfish. But let me tell you something, it's not selfish, it's necessary. You see, silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the presence of awareness, of calm. And when you stop explaining yourself to people who already made up their minds, when you stop trying to fix what isn't yours to fix, something magical happens. You start to hear yourself again. You remember what it feels like to just be, without the weight of everyone else's expectations. I remember a time not too long ago. I was on the phone with someone who only ever called when they needed something. They never asked how I was, never cared about my day. And I used to feel guilty ignoring those calls, like I was doing something wrong. But one day, I just let it ring. I sat in the quiet, and for the first time, I didn't feel bad. I felt free. That moment changed everything. Because here's the truth no one tells you. When you stop showing up for people who only notice your absence when they need something, you start showing up for yourself. And that's when the real healing begins. You deserve rest. You deserve quiet mornings where you sit with your coffee and don't answer to anyone. You deserve long walks where your thoughts don't feel interrupted by obligation. You deserve peace, not just the idea of it, but the real kind, the kind that lives inside you when you're no longer stretching yourself thin just to keep others comfortable. Let them misunderstand you. Let them think you've changed. Let them say you're distant. You're not here to be what everyone else wants you to be. You're here to be you. Finally, fully, without guilt. Now, that shift doesn't happen overnight, especially if you're someone who's always been the dependable one, the listener, the helper. People get used to that version of you. They don't want you to change because your availability benefits them. And when you begin to step back, they'll call you cold, distant, even selfish. But that's not your burden anymore. You've done enough. At this stage in life, your focus should be on what nourishes you. If it drains you, distance yourself. If it disrespects you, walk away. If it disturbs your peace, choose silence. Not because you're bitter, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. There's an old saying, don't explain. Your friends don't need it, and your enemies won't believe it. That hits differently when you're older. You start realizing how much time you wasted trying to be understood by people who were committed to misunderstanding you. Let them. That's not your job anymore. You want to know the most underrated freedom in old age? The freedom to protect your peace without apology. You don't have to justify your quiet. You don't have to over-explain your decisions. You don't need permission to rest. And the world won't fall apart if you say no. Some people will walk away when you stop doing what they want. Let them go. That's just the noise leaving your life. Because here's what really matters now. How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? What brings you joy? What soothes your soul when the house is quiet and the phone isn't ringing? That's the kind of life you build in this season. Not one based on others' expectations, but on your own inner compass. And you'll find in that silence that you're not alone. You're just finally hearing yourself again. And maybe, for the first time, you're realizing that peace was never something you had to search for. It was always waiting for you, right here, There's something beautifully simple about living quietly, not in hiding, but in harmony with yourself, with your thoughts, and with the space around you. And yet, many people resist it. They think silence means something is wrong. They confuse stillness with loneliness. But the truth is, when you finally stop filling your life with noise, distractions, drama, other people's problems, you start to feel a different kind of fullness. One that comes from peace, not pressure. After a certain age, you begin to understand that not everything requires your reaction. Not every comment needs a response. Not every invitation deserves a yes. Silence becomes your strength, not your punishment. It's your way of saying, I value my time too much to waste it explaining myself to someone who isn't listening. I remember sitting at a family dinner a few years ago. There was some disagreement, nothing major, but one of those conversations where everyone starts talking over each other, trying to be right. Normally, I would have chimed in. I would have tried to mediate, to smooth things over. But instead, I just listened. I didn't offer advice, didn't take sides, didn't even nod. And you know what happened? Nothing. The world didn't end. No one stormed out. And me? I left that dinner with my peace still intact. That's the thing. Once you learn the art of staying silent, you realize how often you used to speak just to keep the peace for others, while disrupting it within yourself. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing yourself. You don't have to defend your boundaries. You don't need to reply to every message, attend every event, or solve every problem that lands in your lap. You've earned your peace. You've lived long enough to know that not everything needs your energy. Not everyone deserves access to your spirit. And when you focus inward, when you start paying attention to your own needs, your body responds. Your mind clears. Your sleep gets deeper. You start noticing the little things again. The sound of birds outside your window. The way sunlight hits your favorite chair in the morning. The taste of your tea when you're not rushing. That's not just nice, it's healing. You might be surprised by how much of your stress wasn't yours to carry. It belonged to others, their expectations, their crises, their constant need for reassurance. But because you cared, you took it all on. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you loving. But there comes a time when love must be redefined. When the most loving thing you can do is step back, breathe, choose quiet. Some people won't like that. They'll say you've changed. They'll ask what's wrong. But nothing's wrong. You're just not the same person who bent over backwards to keep everyone happy at your own expense. You're learning to exist without performing. You're learning that your worth isn't tied to your usefulness to others. This stage of life, these years right now, are not for proving yourself. They're not for explaining or fixing or giving pieces of yourself away to be accepted. They're for returning home to who you've always been beneath all the roles you played. Parent, partner, worker, caregiver. Now it's your turn, and you don't need to apologize for that. It's okay to outgrow conversations, relationships, even habits that once felt comfortable. It's okay to say, this doesn't serve me anymore, and walk away. Growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a gentle stepping back instead of a dramatic exit. But it's still growth. Silence doesn't mean you stop loving people. It just means you start loving yourself enough to know when to let go. You can love someone deeply and still protect your peace. You can wish someone well and still move on. And yes, you can choose to be alone without being lonely. In fact, solitude, when chosen intentionally, becomes a sacred space. A space to reflect, to rest, to rediscover yourself. And in that stillness, you start to remember the dreams you put on hold, the hobbies you loved, the books you wanted to read, the quiet mornings that were once filled with chaos. You begin to reclaim your life, not in a loud, defiant way, but in a soft, graceful one. You don't need to announce it. You don't need permission. You just begin, one moment at a time, one decision at a time. Maybe you start by turning off your phone after 6 p.m. Maybe you begin to politely decline invitations that don't feel right. Maybe you spend more time in nature and less time in front of the news. These small changes, they add up. They create space. And in that space, something beautiful happens. You start to feel like yourself again. you'll start to notice that peace isn't something you find in others. It's something you protect within yourself. And silence, when chosen with intention, becomes your strongest ally. When you stop speaking just to be heard, and instead start listening to your inner voice, everything shifts. You don't need validation the way you used to. You stop asking, "Am I doing enough?" and start asking, "Does this feel right for me?" That's a question we don't ask often enough in the first half of life, but in this season, it becomes essential. You begin to see that peace isn't something that comes from having everything figured out. It comes from letting go of the need to figure everything out. It comes from releasing control, loosening your grip, and learning how to simply be. Not fixing, not chasing, not explaining. Just being, breathing, existing in your truth. And what a gift that is. There's something deeply liberating about getting older. It strips away the noise. The need to impress fades. The urgency to respond to every demand lessens. You've been through enough to know what matters now. And it's not likes or applause or keeping up appearances. It's presence. It's authenticity. It's peace. You no longer want to prove your point. You want to protect your energy. You don't want more things. You want more time, more joy, more quiet. And that's not selfish. That's wisdom. You've earned the right to choose how you live, and you don't need anyone's permission to honor that. Some of the most powerful moments you'll ever experience will happen in stillness. They won't be loud or dramatic. They'll be quiet and soft. The kind of moments that make you close your eyes and smile. Like watching the sunrise with a warm cup of coffee. Or feeling the breeze on your skin during a slow afternoon walk. Or sitting with someone you love and not needing to say a word because your presence is enough. That's the beauty of aging with grace. You learn that silence isn't the absence of something. It's the presence of everything you've been too busy to notice. And when you finally stop filling every moment with noise, you create space for healing, for clarity, for true contentment. People might not always understand your silence. They might think it means you've given up or checked out. But you know better. You know that this silence is sacred. It's not emptiness, it's fullness. It's the result of a life lived, of lessons learned, of a soul finally settling into itself. And while the world keeps spinning faster, while everyone else keeps rushing, chasing, shouting, you'll know that your power comes not from keeping up, but from slowing down, from pulling inward, from remembering that the most meaningful parts of life aren't loud. They're found in the still, quiet corners we often overlook. So if you find yourself craving more peace these days, don't question it. Lean into it. Let the world wonder why you're not answering every call or showing up to every event. Let them wonder why you seem so calm, so content, so unbothered. Let them wonder, because they'll figure out one day. This silence is where your strength lives now. And if no one's told you this lately, let me be the one to say it. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to rest. And you're allowed to focus on you. You've carried so much for so long. Maybe now it's time to set it down. Not with guilt, not with regret, but with grace. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you found comfort in these words, if something resonated with your spirit, I'd love for you to join our community here at Aging Gracefully 60. This is a space where we celebrate wisdom, peace, and the quiet power of growing older. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need this gentle reminder today. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. We're aging gracefully together. Here's to peace, presence, and living fully